Revealed, the incredible moment a bank manager mocked a customer only to discover he was the CEO. Jake walked into the bank, heart racing, the weight of impending bills pressing down on him like a heavy fog. He'd just received the call about his mother's hospitalization. The urgency of the situation was clear, but as he glanced around, the familiar chatter of Maplewood felt alien to him. The sharp clack of Greg's shoes echoed throughout the marble-floored lobby like a condemning gavel. Jake wore his usual plain button-up and faded jeans, modest attire reflecting his humble ethos. Greg, on the other hand, exuded an air of privilege in his tailored suit, perfectly coiffed hair, and a smug grin that dripped with disdain. As Jake approached, he felt the tension swell, a coil of frustration tightening in his chest. "What can I do for you?" Greg asked, a disingenuous smile spreading. Jake cleared his throat, the words tumbling in his mind like marbles, impossible to retrieve. He mentioned his need for a small loan, just a little help while managing unexpected medical bills, but Greg's dismissive wave of his hand sliced through Jake's sincerity like a hot knife through butter. "Honestly, Jake, is this a serious request? You run a tech startup now, you should know better than to stumble in here looking like this." The laughter that followed felt like a slap to Jake's face. Beneath Greg's mocking tone lay a pit of self-doubt. Am I not good enough? His insides churned, emotions spiraling wildly between embarrassment, anger, and a deep-rooted sense of inadequacy. Memories of his father's relentless work ethic flooded back. Don't let anyone make you feel small. Yet here was Greg, doing just that. Jake stepped back, heat rising to his cheeks, trying to mask the sting of humiliation. He left the bank feeling like he was carrying an anvil on his back, anger simmering just beneath the surface. Greg's words echoed in his head, relentless. You should know better. There were countless families who relied on his software, yet it all seemed overshadowed by this one man's dismissive laughter. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. That night, the frustration morphed into determination. He burned the midnight oil, poring over his company's projects and reaching out to mentors, focusing every ounce of his energy into a new solution that could revolutionize financial management for families. Every stroke of a key felt like a step toward reclaiming his dignity. Ideas flowed, spiraling into binary codes that would carry the weight of his resolve. Yet, what would happen when he faced Greg again? Would he be able to look that smirk in the eye without collapsing? As the days turned into weeks, he found solace in his work, but the anxiety twisted in his gut. The looming question hung above him, waiting: what if you fail? The suffocating pressure wrapped itself around him, no sign of release in sight. On the day of the business summit, Jake took a deep breath, his heart thumping a rhythm of uncertainty. As he prepared to step on stage, the very place that Greg had basked in before, he locked eyes with the bank manager. This would be his moment, his turning point. But with every step, doubt clawed back at him. What if Greg would try to belittle him again? What if his beliefs of hard work and conviction meant nothing in the presence of wealth and arrogance? As he began to speak, the air crackled with tension. This was his time to reclaim what was taken from him. But would he be strong enough to face the truth of his own vulnerability, or would he crumble under the scrutiny? Each word he spoke hung in the air, stretching toward a confrontation that neither of them could anticipate. The crowd leaned in, the atmosphere thickening with anticipation, setting the stage for an inevitable clash of wills. The silence roared loudly, unanswered questions igniting fervor within as Jake's world teetered on the brink of revelation or ruin. Jake's voice resonated through the microphone, echoing across the vast room filled with eager listeners. He spoke about innovation, the importance of adaptability, and the future of financial technology. As he articulated the vision behind his startup, he noticed a fidgeting in the audience, a mixture of curiosity and skepticism, particularly from the corner where Greg sat, arms crossed defiantly over his tailored suit. With each passing moment, Jake felt the swell of confidence build within him, drowning out the doubt that had plagued him since that humiliating encounter at the bank. He acknowledged the complexities families faced with their finances, relating to their struggles. His own mother's looming hospital bills loomed large in his mind. This was just a product to push, it was a lifeline. He wove in anecdotes from his personal life, grounding his pitch in authenticity that resonated deeply, but with every assertive declaration, every nod of agreement from the crowd, he spied Greg's furrowed brow, deepening with skepticism. Something in the bank manager's tight smile hinted that he would not let this moment pass without a challenge. Jake breathed in, centering himself. The opportunity to redefine his worth wasn't just an abstract dream, it was unfolding right before him. As he concluded, Jake invited questions from the audience. There was a buzz of excitement, and hands shot into the air. One by one, he fielded inquiries, expertly navigating the intricacies of his solution, his voice gaining a melody of authority. But then, the audience parted as Greg stood up. The silence felt suffocating. Interesting thoughts, Jake, Greg said, sarcasm lacing his tone. But your ideas are a dime a dozen. What makes yours stand out in this saturated market? You're clearly out of your depth presenting here. The air thickened with tension, the adversarial spark igniting into a flame. Jake's heart raced as he felt the weight of the audience's gaze fixed upon him. How would he respond? Would he succumb to the same sense of inadequacy Greg had tried to enforce, or embrace this moment as a testament to his journey? Thank you, Greg, Jake started, voice steady but deep with resolve. It's true that many ideas are floating around in the tech space. What sets my company apart is not just the software, but the empathy that drives its creation. I've been on the other side of the screen, facing financial hardships head-on. Each line of code I write is aligned with real-life struggles people face every day. The audience murmured in appreciation, and a flicker of surprise crossed Greg's face. Empathy, huh? Let us not get too emotional in business, he retorted, but there was an underlying insecurity in his voice, an imbalance as if Jake's words sliced through his persona of authority. Jake stood taller, recognizing the opportunity this confrontation had presented. Emotional connection is the cornerstone of business, he replied, drawing the crowd closer with his passion. We're not just selling a product, we're selling hope, a solution forged from my own experience. If that isn't good enough for you, Greg, then maybe it's time for new leadership in the banking sector, one that prioritizes people over profits. The room erupted into applause, and for a brief moment, Jake felt invincible. For the first time, he clashed with Greg not as a beaten-down figure but as a visionary. Yet, he noticed the anger bubbling beneath the surface in Greg's eyes, an unsettling truth that this fight was far from over. As Jake stepped off stage, empowered by the crowd's reaction, a new anxiety washed over him. While he had gained ground against Greg, he knew the true battle lay ahead. The bank manager wouldn't walk away quietly, he would retaliate, seeking to regain control over the narrative. Jake felt the thrill of uncertainty, the tension of what Greg might do next lingering like a shadow behind him. Would he be able to maintain his resolve, or would he need to prepare for an escalation that could threaten everything he had worked for? The stakes had transformed, and where? There was victory today, the tide could change in an instant. Jake stepped into the hallway, the adrenaline from his presentation still coursing through him like electricity. The applause faded behind him, but its echoes stirred both victory and anxiety within. He felt lighter, yet the shadows of doubt twisted in his gut. Greg's retort lingered, a specter of what might come next. Each step echoed on the polished floor, reminding him of the disparity between his aspirations and the brutal competitiveness of the finance industry. As he moved towards the exit, he felt compelled to reflect on the encounter. What had he truly demonstrated today? Was it merely a battle of wills, or had he ignited something deeper within himself? Jake leaned against the cold metal of the exit door, allowing the coolness to ground his swirling thoughts. The crowd had rallied behind him, validating his voice and effort, yet he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a far more complex fight. The interaction with Greg was not only a confrontation with a single foe but also a reckoning with his insecurities. Could he carry this momentum into future interactions? A thought prickled at the back of his mind. Was he prepared for the fallout that was sure to follow? There was a shift in the air, and although he had brought forth his vision with clarity and purpose, the open challenge now loomed. Greg would retaliate, perhaps with a social media smear, a subtle disruption in his young company's early initiatives, or by rallying support from other established finance players. Jake knew he needed a plan. Standing in the dimly lit hallway, a revelation dawned on him. This was not just about business acumen, it was about understanding the emotional undercurrents driving his and Greg's actions. What if he could predict Greg's responses? Understanding Greg's motives could give him an edge. With this knowledge, they could exchange roles, a young innovator challenging a hardened traditionalist. As he collected his thoughts, Jake's phone buzzed in his pocket. The notification was a text from Sarah, his tech lead. "Great job today. People are talking about your pitch, they're excited. We should celebrate." Jake felt a surge of warmth at Sarah's enthusiasm. She had been instrumental in molding the startup's vision, her belief in their mission unwavering. Replying with emojis felt too flippant, but he didn't want to dwell. Instead, he typed, "Thanks. We need to plan next steps, though. I have a sense we're going to need more than celebrations soon. Can we meet tomorrow?" The response was practically instantaneous, "Absolutely. Let's tackle whatever comes next." Affirmed by her support, Jake began to devise a mental strategy. Clearly defined goals and maybe even a mantra for their team, something to remind everyone that their mission transcended the bank's systems, a reminder to keep empathy at the forefront. It was time to solidify the bond between tech and user experience, establishing features that went beyond surface-level engagement and truly resonated on a personal level. However, deep down, he knew this mindset would need to permeate every aspect of their operations. It would require fortification against criticism and a resilience that he was slowly building within himself. The confrontation with Greg wasn't merely a battle, it was a turning point. Jake left the building, seizing the chill of the evening air, a refreshing contrast to the heat of the stage. He glanced at the expansive skyline, bright with possibility. But what lay ahead? The need for strategic moves weighed heavily on his shoulders. Would he risk being too audacious and invite further attack? Additionally, would staying emotionally intelligent be enough to counter Greg's potential aggression? Jake knew his next step required meticulous planning but also a boldness to venture into unfamiliar territories. Would he confront Greg directly and challenge his authority, or would he play the long game, gathering support and refining their vision patiently? As he made his way to his car, a sense of determination enveloped him. This was more than a simple business endeavor. This was about carving out a space where innovation thrived, driven by purpose. The time had come to face Greg, not just in a pitch but in a battle for the very future of a sector that desperately needed change. Little did he know, his resolve would soon be tested in unexpected ways, making him question his strategies and beliefs more profoundly than he ever expected. Jake sat in his dimly lit apartment, the weight of the day's engagement still pressing on his shoulders. The city lit up outside, glimmering like the hopes and fears he clung to. Tonight, the exuberance of his presentation morphed into an unsettling reality check. As he pored over his notes, Greg's words skimmed through his mind like a dull ache, a reminder of the obstacles that lay ahead. He knew that forging ahead would demand not only tactical acumen but also emotional intelligence, traits all too often overshadowed by cutthroat ambition in this industry. That reminder of his vulnerabilities kept surfacing like a stubborn weed in fertile soil. He had to dig deep, confront them, and use that fear proactively. But how, exactly? Images of Sarah and their talk about next steps flitted through his thoughts. She believed in their vision, and that should have been enough, but what if her optimism blinded her to the threats lurking in shadows? Jake had to hedge against complacency, both for her sake and the startup's future. He absolutely could not become a victim of his own successes. He reached for his laptop, opening a blank document where his calculated chaos would take form. He needed a clear, actionable strategy, one that merged their innovative spirit with the realities of the challenges they faced. A few ideas began to flow through his fingers, and with each one, he felt fire sparking back to life. Ideas for new features, audience engagement techniques, but above all, methods for collecting feedback and adapting quickly. The thought of inviting customers into their design process excited him. Involving them directly would not only fortify their user base but also create a sense of community, one Greg couldn't touch. What if he introduced a beta program? This could allow them early access, bolstering loyalty while collecting invaluable input. With each keystroke, every new idea lit a flame, nudging him further toward a future that felt actionable. Yet still, uncertainty gnawed at him. What if Greg publicly refuted their innovations? What if his attempts at building relationships backfired? He had to remain several steps ahead, to counter every potential move before it unfolded. Jake spent hours crafting a response to Greg's anticipated counterarguments. He meticulously pulled apart their pitch, anticipating interrogations and skeptical assessments. His instinct was to prepare fiercely, channel every ounce of passion into perfecting his approach, and galvanizing his team to present an unshakable front. Midway through his focused frenzy, his phone buzzed again, this time a news alert chiming in. A finance industry blog had published an article featuring his earlier pitch, spurring a slew of comments. The headline screamed incredulity over the audacity of a newcomer challenging established players. He had provoked attention, both positively and negatively. This was the double-edged sword of competition. His heart raced as he inhaled sharply, reading through the comments. Some applauded his vision, while others were laden with sarcasm and doubt. Suddenly, a sinister realization dawned on him. He had successfully fueled Greg, feeding the very fire of opposition he needed to douse. Jake momentarily froze in thought. The thrill of being in the spotlight came with consequences. Did he just create an opportunity for Greg to undermine him, or had he unwittingly propelled their startup into a new limelight, destined to shake up old paradigms? Perhaps this was a defining moment, a chance to turn Greg's cynicism back on him. With renewed resolve, Jake mapped out his plan for action. He would not be cornered. Instead, he would galvanize the community and articulate the change they embodied clearly, challenging the narratives that circulated in detriment. The clock ticked into the early hours as he finalized his strategy, a digital town hall to showcase their innovations and directly address both praise and criticism. It was time to lean into vulnerability, embrace his entrepreneurial spirit, and navigate the treacherous waters that lay ahead. As he closed his laptop, a burgeoning excitement coursed through him. This wasn't just a startup, it was a testament to resilience and ingenuity. The ground was shifting beneath his ambition, and he was ready to stake his claim. But what hidden dangers still lay in wait? Could he truly withstand Greg's impending escalation, or would he find himself ensnared in an escalating feud that would test not only his business acumen but his very identity? Jake woke up the next morning, the city beginning to stir with its usual cacophony of noise, but his mind was still engulfed in thoughts spun from last night's revelations. He had a plan. The digital town hall would be their statement piece, showcasing not just innovation but transparency. This was a new approach, a step into the light rather than retreating into the shadows. Yet doubts clung to him as he laced his sneakers and ventured outside for a jog. Each step resonated with his resolve, but lingering uncertainty tainted the rhythm. Would the crowd at the town hall embrace their vision? Would they be hostile or supportive? Jake wrestled with the duality of excitement and anxiety, his mind flitting back to Greg's appraising eyes, as cutting as any blade. How could he maintain his presence and create a compelling atmosphere when undermining forces lay in wait? His thoughts drifted back to Sarah. Her unwavering support often felt like both a boon and a weight. Did she recognize the gravity of the situation, or was her optimism a blindfold against looming dangers? Her belief in the startup's mission invigorated him. Perhaps this time he would involve her more closely. She had a talent for connecting with users that could turn their feedback into actionable insights and would balance his more analytical approach. After the run, Jake enveloped himself in his workspace, his desk emblematic of organized chaos with notes strewn across the surface, crumpled paper balls signifying abandoned ideas. A new energy surged through him as he began plotting the town hall meeting. Broad strokes marked the agenda, highlights of their innovations, a QA segment, and an open sharing platform for feedback. He envisioned a vibrant dialogue, not just a monologue. As he drafted the emails to their stakeholders, he penned a personal message to Sarah, inviting her to co-host the event. The thought of her on stage, sharing their vision, would not only solidify their mission but allow her voice to resonate within the community. Just as he hit send, uncertainty arrived, uninvited. What if Sarah faltered? His mind spiraled, imagining her stumbling under the pressure while Greg's shadow loomed large over them, ready to pounce on any misstep. It felt selfish to burden her with his fears. Yet, she possessed a spark he lacked, one that could ignite the audience's enthusiasm. Why did he constantly wrestle with this cognitive dissonance, embracing partnership while fearing dependency? Jake shook off the insecurities and channeled that unease into further refinement of his presentation. He tailored language to appeal to their target audience while ensuring that emotional undertones illustrated the human aspect behind their brand. A startup wasn't just about technological prowess, it was about being relatable. Later that day, Greg's response to the article emerged, a tweet echoing skepticism, amplifying the backlash against them to his followers. Nausea settled in Jake's stomach. Greg's ability to twist narratives had reached a new level, and this time, Jake couldn't simply ignore it. He realized he needed sharper tools than merely preparing for counterarguments. A confrontational approach could serve as a potent lever. The initial plan for the town hall morphed, fueled by necessity. He would craft a segment highlighting Greg's critiques, turning adversarial comments into a platform for dialogue. Instead of shying away from opposition, he would leverage it to solidify their position, challenging doubters head-on. The clock ticked closer to the event, the air thick with tension and anticipation. With every moment, Jake felt layers of his resolve toughening. This was his time to showcase resilience, letting the doubters serve as the backdrop to their triumph. As Jake prepared to deliver his speech, a silent question loomed: would he emerge victorious, or would the weight of doubt crush him? The space before him felt electric and foreboding that he was ready to face what came next. But could he shift the narrative in his favor, or would Greg's machinations unravel everything he had fought for? Jake paced back and forth in the dimly lit room where he meticulously crafted his presentation for the town hall. Each step echoed in the silence, a drumming reminder of the stakes at hand. Just moments before he would step into the spotlight, he felt the cool metal of his laptop against his palm, a tangible representation of his work, his identity, and his aspirations. The digital clock above him ticked to its final countdown, each second an implicit summons to overcome the uncertainty that had plagued him since Greg's mocking tweet. Jake inhaled deeply, pushing his mind to sift through the noise of anxiety. What if the crowd rejected him? What if Greg's influence turned them against his ideas? The air felt thick, flooding his head with all-consuming doubts. But uncertainty bore a seed of motivation. It was a stark reminder of the high stakes of entrepreneurship, exposing oneself to judgment and risk to carve out a nascent path. He mentally reversed the narrative Greg had spun. Instead of presenting their efforts as defensiveness, he would turn it into a narrative of evolution, a story of growth spurred by challenge. Himself, Sarah, and their startup could emerge empowered. He sat down to collect his thoughts, separating the chaos around him from the clarity he sought. The notebook before him filled with phrases crafted to resonate. We learn from our critics. That was at the very essence of evolution. He would capitalize on the critical discourse, using Greg's derision as fuel rather than a deterrent. Jake's thoughts finally settled on Sarah. She had a gift for engaging others, often reading situations with a perceptiveness that he admired. It offered him a moment of reflection. Perhaps he could take a page from her book, not as a crutch but as a collaboration. He thought back to how she transformed user feedback into spirited discussions, her charisma illuminating even the most doubtful perspectives. Right then, he decided he would encourage her to take the stage early on, nudging the audience from doubt into dialogue. As the realization struck, adrenaline coursed through him. Could he really elevate her voice alongside his own? That was his way forward. He wouldn't just stand alone under scrutiny, he would endeavor to uplift her in the process. As he gathered the remaining notes for his presentation, a pang of impending confrontation settled within him. The town hall would not just be a showcase of their innovations, it would be a crucible of challenge, forcing him to confront not only Greg's accusations but also his own fears about leading and sharing space with another strong voice. The knock on the door jolted Jake out of his reverie. It was Sarah. Her smile brought a wave of relief, but as she stepped in, he saw the same recognition of stakes mirrored in her eyes. "Ready to take them on?" she asked, her voice steady, but he caught the shadow of doubt behind it. "I am now. I want us to do this together. We need each other's strengths," he replied, a plan crystallizing before him. Asking for her help meant more than simply sharing the spotlight, it meant embracing vulnerability. As they ran through the slides, Jake felt lighter. Their combined energy sparked an infectious enthusiasm, filling the room with renewed vitality. He realized engagement with his audience hinged not solely on him. This unity, this partnership, was his greatest asset. Standing backstage, the roar of anticipation from the audience pulsated through the walls, the tension undeniable. Could they really overturn the scrutiny and turn it into an opportunity? Just moments before they would step out, Jake felt an electric charge of determination surge through him. Today wouldn't just be about facing Greg. It would be about transcending the notion of opposition and presenting their vision as an invitation to build together. As he and Sarah took a deep breath together and stepped into the light, the weight of doubt began to fade, replaced by a burgeoning hope that when faced with resistance, he wouldn't just stand his ground, he would build a bridge. But as Jake opened his mouth to begin, a disconcerting thought flicked through his mind. Was Greg waiting? Would he strike from the shadows? The moment had arrived to confront not only public opinion but the very essence of their endeavor. This time, Jake was ready not just to fight but to flourish. Would they turn the tide in their favor, or was failure lurking just beyond the facade of courage? Jake stood at the forefront of the stage, the glaring lights illuminating his figure while the palpable tension of the audience wrapped around him like a heavy cloak. The murmurs echoed in his ears, but they transformed into an exhilarating current of adrenaline as he glanced at Sarah, standing confidently beside him. They were not just two individuals presenting, they were a united front, two voices harmonizing for a shared vision. "Thank you for being here today," he began, channeling the warmth of Sarah's smile into his tone. "I want you to meet the team that's building our future together." He nodded at her to take the lead, remembering the very essence of their shared mission, inherent in their partnership. Sarah stepped forward, her energy contagious. "What you see in front of you is not just a startup, it embodies our community's dreams and potential." As she spoke, Jake focused on the intricate details of her presentation style. Her hands moved gracefully, punctuating her confidence in a way that stirred the crowd, creating a dynamic interplay between her words and their receptive energy. Tension shifted from fear to excitement. Jake realized the power of authentic engagement. Their vision was resonating. "Together, we invite you not just to observe our journey," Sarah continued, "but to become part of it. We thrive on your feedback, your participation, and your insights. Every critique is a stepping stone towards excellence." Jake felt the audience's shift in empathy, heard the soft gasps and attentive whispers. What started as skepticism was evolving into curiosity. He glanced at Greg in the back, scanning his expression, searching for signs of dissent. Instead, he found a hint of uncertainty, perhaps even concern, in the way Greg leaned forward, attempting to grasp the engaging narrative that was unfolding. Now it was Jake's turn again, heart pounding in his chest. "We learn from each challenge thrown our way, especially those that come from critics, who sometimes fail to grasp the deeper meanings of our work. Each setback is covered in lessons." The weight of Greg's scorn transformed into collective curiosity as Jake bravely confronted the criticism with vulnerability. "Together, we build resilience," he declared, his voice resonating with newfound firmness. You may think our story is one of rejection, but we are here to tell you that it is one of revelation. The crowd began to shift, leaning into the dialogue he created, but was it enough? Jake's pulse quickened as he noticed the audience starting to buzz. Questions began to emerge, some about his strategy, others about Sarah, and many about their vision. It felt as if the walls of doubt surrounding him started to dissolve. Their work had never been about him alone. It was about community, discussion, and an unyielding spirit of collaboration. As the presentation progressed, they engaged the audience, swapping thoughts and insights as though they were all sitting at a round table rather than standing apart. Jake began to see the possibilities opening up before him, fostering deeper connections with not only the crowd but with his own desires to grow as a leader. Then a voice cut through the rising energy. "Jake, do you believe anyone can really participate, or will it still be just your vision leading the way?" It was Greg's voice, laced with skepticism. Jake felt the ground shift beneath him, but instead of folding under pressure, he embraced the challenge. "Isn't that why we're here? To redefine what leadership means? To learn from each other? I want everyone here to find a place in our journey. That's what growth is, evolving from mere bosses to engaging allies." In that moment, he experienced an epiphany. Leadership was not about retaining authority but rather about sharing responsibility. Encouraging an open dialogue where each participant felt valued could mark a monumental shift in his approach. As the questions swirled around him, invigorating the room, Jake realized their venture had grown beyond personal ambitions. It thrived in potential, igniting a new sense of purpose that brushed aside the shadows of doubt. They weren't just fighting for survival, they were sowing the seeds of collaboration and co-creation. As the final question loomed, Jake knew they were at a pivotal moment, one that could solidify their vision or unravel their hard-fought progress. He felt a surge of excitement. This was a step towards true partnership, one he never anticipated embracing so fully, but he hadn't anticipated the full force of Greg's rebuttal waiting at the end. Would he be ready to tackle the forces of opposition personally? Would he keep his newfound resolve in the face of a relentless challenge? The questions burned within him as the evening stretched ahead. He was about to discover just how far he had truly come. Jake felt the weight of Greg's skepticism hanging in the air, thick and tangible. The room was a crucible, testing not just their ideas but his very identity as a leader. A sense of urgency surged through him. He had to respond not just with words but with a commitment to action. "This isn't merely my vision," he stated firmly, his voice steady. "It's a shared journey where every voice is vital. I stand before you to listen and learn, not just to command." He could feel eyes widening, some faces brightening with intrigue as if the fog of doubt was beginning to lift. Yet underneath the admiration, he sensed a current of apprehension. Could he genuinely foster this collaborative atmosphere? Or would fear of failure keep his leadership monopolized? The presentation dwindled to a close, and as applause filled the room, Jake stepped off the stage, his heart racing with a mix of achievement and anxiety. He had challenged himself and the audience to be bold, but now the responsibility of that challenge weighed heavily on him. He searched the crowd for Sarah, eager to share the adrenaline pumping through his veins. She was speaking animatedly with a small group, her laughter infectious, yet her keen eye darted toward Jake. When their eyes met, she broke away, weaving through the crowd. "We did it!" she exclaimed, high-fiving him. The energy in there was electric. "You were incredible, really." The pride in her eyes was reassuring, but Jake felt an unsettling contrast within himself. "Thanks, Sarah. You were brilliant," he replied, yet the question loomed large. Was this momentum sustainable? As they walked back to the workspace, Jake's enthusiasm began to falter. He pondered the intricacies of leadership. Greg's question was not just a jab but a pivotal point of reflection. What if their efforts ended up mere echoes of his ideals? The office was alive with chatter and plans sketched on whiteboards, yet Jake's mind was elsewhere, sifting through his thoughts. A more egalitarian approach to leadership seemed challenging, yet necessary. Would others resent him if they felt their opinions were not valued? Would they trust him enough to share their ideas freely, with a newfound determination, he paused and turned to Sarah. Do you think everyone sees these sessions as genuine opportunities to interact? I worry they might hold back, thinking their input won't change anything. He was probing, searching for insight into their team dynamics. She considered this thoughtfully. It might be a barrier. We need to create safe spaces where ideas can flourish without judgment. That way, they feel encouraged to be vocal. Jake nodded, recognizing not just the idea but the lesson in that moment. Leadership requires not just vision, but vulnerability. He had to let down his guard, open himself to constructive criticism, and empower others. That evening, a sense of clarity began to find its foothold. He could redefine his role, shape it into one that encouraged collaboration, dialogue, and shared responsibility. But what if those adjustments revealed hidden tensions within the team? Could he extract feedback through open discussions, dismantling any reticence? Was he ready for honest confrontations that may follow? As night stretched on, Jake found himself lesson planning instead of sleeping, strategizing ways to instigate change. Perhaps an informal meeting, a town hall of sorts, an honest conversation inviting all levels to discuss concerns and suggestions. The goal was no longer just about gaining support for their startup but also about cultivating a culture of trust and openness. But in that, he had to confront his own fears. What if he opened the door, only for dissent to follow? The weight of uncertainty settled in once more as he jotted down notes. This was a turning point, an opportunity for deeper connection, but it demanded a leap into the unknown. He was on the brink of reshaping not just their venture, but how he viewed himself as a leader. With every plan to foster open dialogue, he sensed a fire igniting within him. It was time to step into the role he envisioned, not as a dictator but as a catalyst. The next morning, standing before his team, Jake would lay the groundwork for this transformation. But deep within, the question clawed at him: would everyone embrace this change, or would some still resist? Ready or not, the moment had arrived to confront whatever challenges lay ahead. Would he find the courage to lead through uncertainty, solidifying his newfound commitment? As the sun stretched its golden rays through the office windows, Jake stood before his team, the air thick with anticipation. The din of chatter died down, eyes fixed on him, curious. This was his moment to dismantle the walls that had constrained their dynamics for too long. The swirling mix of excitement and trepidation in his stomach warned him of the potential upheaval his words could create. Thank you all for being here, he began, his voice resonating with a newfound confidence. As we embark on our next phase, I want this to be a dialogue, a true collaboration. We have to create an environment where every idea, no matter how raw or unconventional, is welcomed. He felt the gravity of his statement. This was a departure from the traditional top-down leadership model, one he had unconsciously embraced. The prospect of inviting open discourse terrified him, yet he knew it was essential. Today, I want to hear from you, he continued, signaling for Sarah to take a seat nearby. We're introducing an idea box, a literal one, right here, he said, gesturing towards a simple wooden box on the conference table. All ideas, concerns, and questions are welcome, anonymously. I want to know what you think we can improve or change. After all, you are the heartbeat of this organization. He scanned the room, gauging their reactions. The initial surprise began to morph into cautious interest. Jake took a breath, continuing, I hope this will help us to foster genuine discussions. There will be no judgment, this is a safe space. Some nodded, while others exchanged guarded glances. He could see skepticism etched across Greg's face yet again. It hung there like a shadow. The unlit flame of doubt flickered to life, threatening to take hold of the moment. Remember, I'm not expecting miracles overnight, Jake added, his gaze sweeping over the team. Our journey towards better communication might be rocky, and I hope you can all bear with me. We'll cultivate trust together. The air shifted. There was movement in the room, a shift from skepticism to cautious optimism as murmurs hummed through the group. Yet one glaring question lingered: could he sustain this openness amidst inevitable disagreements? Jake felt that same weight of uncertainty settling back into his chest. With a swift but deliberate motion, he dashed to the whiteboard, jotting down points for the day's agenda. He was weaving the budding threads of trust with an assurance he scarcely felt. "We're going to have a roundtable discussion at the end of the week, where we can openly discuss what has come out of this idea box. It must be an environment of respect and constructive criticism. Can I count on your support to make this happen?" A few murmurs of agreement rose, but he noticed Greg still leaning back, arms crossed, a look of defiance etched on his features. The challenge was undeniable. Would Greg choose to be a part of this new era or remain firmly rooted in the past? Jake paused, taking a calculated risk. "Greg, I know you have strong views," he said directly, dodging the temptation to regard him as the antagonist. "I welcome your perspective as our team evolves. This process is about accountability, not animosity." For the first time, Greg shifted slightly in his seat, uncoiling a fraction of the tension he had held. Jake recognized the significance but felt the stakes rising. The tension in the room had palpable pressure. As the meeting continued, Jake noticed several teammates contributing, ideas blossoming as discussion mingled with excitement. Yet with every encouraging word he extended, a fear simmered beneath. What if this newfound openness spiraled into chaos? Would there be rifts, misunderstandings, or, worse, sabotage from those who resisted transformation? By the end, though, the unease had lessened somewhat, leaving behind tentative hope. They wrapped up the session energized, yet Jake's mind raced elsewhere. The initiative had been launched, and with it, he was now tethered to the unpredictable tide of his team's reactions. With every thought he turned to Greg, questions returned. Would his hesitance morph into engagement? What if the transformations he sought unraveled into turmoil? As Jake stepped out of that room and into the lingering scent of coffee and hope, he understood that this was just the beginning, a mere opening to deeper truths that would soon emerge. How would he navigate the turbulent waters lurking beneath the surface? Would his leadership prevail against adversity, or would he find himself grappling with unforeseen consequences? The time had come to confront these possibilities head-on, pushing him to redefine not just his team's future, but his place within it. What shadows lay ahead, ready to challenge every decision he had made? Months passed since Jake's bold town hall meeting, and the ripple effects of his commitment to transforming leadership echoed throughout his startup. The concept of shared responsibility had begun to take root, fostering an environment of openness and innovation. It was remarkable what could happen when voices previously overshadowed began to flourish in the light of collaboration. Jake proudly observed his team conducting brainstorming sessions, ideas bouncing around the room like brightly colored balls on a vibrant playground. Tensions from before faded into the background, making way for a culture that not only welcomed dissent but embraced it as a catalyst for growth. Through shared discussions, their innovative product began to evolve into a platform tailored around empathy, resulting in strategies that resonated deeply with the very families they aimed to support. This transformation didn't come without its challenges. Jake still recalled the palpable tension when he faced Greg. However, he also understood that the confrontation was a pivotal moment to which he had since clung. His awareness sharpened, and he realized that every critique, every skeptical voice had potential value. Now, he actively encouraged participation in strategy sessions, ensuring that every person felt their contributions mattered. This nurtured unity, and slowly but surely, the trust within the team solidified. As their collective progress surged, external recognition followed. A local tech magazine highlighted their groundbreaking approach in an article titled "The Future of Financial Empathy." Positive comments flooded in across various platforms, illuminating the startup as a beacon for change in the often cutthroat financial industry. Their newfound reputation reverberated even when Greg's voice would enter the fray, filled with cynical commentary on Twitter that barely made a dent against the suffocating positivity surrounding them. One fateful afternoon, an invitation arrived from a well-known conference championing innovation in technology. They invited Jake to keynote, showcasing their thriving model of collaboration and empathy. This was validation beyond his wildest dreams. Standing under the spotlight would not just be an opportunity to present his vision, it was confirmation of his journey, a a reflection of overcoming doubts and illuminating the fire within him that Greg had initially tried to extinguish. In preparation, Jake meticulously crafted his keynote, combining well-structured data with deep emotional resonance. As he rehearsed in front of the mirror, reflecting the seasoned confidence he had built, he was struck by the bond he had forged with his team. Their contributions shaped the narrative he would present, those very voices highlighted throughout his slides. This was far more than Jake's achievement, it was a manifestation of their collective spirit. On the day of the conference, he stood tall as the audience welcomed him with a warm round of applause. In that moment, he resolved to take every confrontation, every moment of doubt he had endured, and channel it into a powerful message. His conviction boiled to the surface as he opened with the vision that had transformed not just his leadership but his understanding of interpersonal connection as one of the most potent tools in business. He detailed their journey toward empathy-driven technology, vividly painting the challenges they overcame while inviting participation. Information turned into discussion as he encouraged audience interaction, a panorama of voices ignited and emboldened by the very principles he had shaped within his team. The energy heightened with every story he shared, repositioning doubt into the crowd as individuals began to identify with his narrative, igniting the spark of inspiration within them. After he finished, the applause reverberated in his ears like a jubilant symphony. A mixture of relief, pride, and accomplishment washed over him. He had achieved more than just presenting an innovative product, he had unlocked the power of community. Engagement, and with that came self-assuredness he once thought unattainable. Later, as he took in the audience's animated discussions, Jake felt a surge of monumental pride for his entire team. The journey marked a profound evolution not only for their technology but also for him as a leader, firmly rooted in the idea that shared success hinged on collaboration and listening. It was a painful journey of transformation, but now it hummed with the sweet familiarity of hard-earned victory not just in battling against Greg's deprecation but in establishing a culture pivoting around empathy, compassion, and resilience, a pivotal change that was appreciated by those who had once felt subordinate or unheard. He recognized and honored their growth in this venture together, acknowledging each member's input as vital in crafting the future they were all building. As the conference wound down, handing out contact cards and mingling with industry leaders, Jake felt grounded in the knowledge of what they had accomplished, truly a convergence of recent past and promising future. This pivotal moment reaffirmed his growth, knowledge gained through trial and experience. As he embraced newfound allies, Jake could fully step forward, no longer burdened by past insecurities but ready to shape a promising, empathetic future. Now it is time for you to take the leap. Subscribe immediately to our channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Your support is crucial. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and optimize our reach. Let's hear your thoughts. Comment your reactions and theories about Jake's inspiring journey. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion of personal growth and transformation.